Greetings, friends of the apocalypse, and welcome to this week's episode of The Talking Dead. No.
Now, I would like to point out, Jared, that your intense preparation for this show is demonstrated by your hobo beard.
Yes.
You've hoboed up for this show, sir. Clearly, you got stuff hanging over you that you can't even run a razor over that scruffy face. What's up? It wouldn't be that maybe an important event is closing in on you.
No. I shave like once a week, dude. That's it. And sometimes I do it right before the show. Sometimes I don't. So,
if I could say though, right now I could really go for a can of beans cooked over a trash can fire. No hobo.
Yeah.
Or how about some hobo soup? That's actually a real product. But
you do, after all, have a hobo knife. So you're already
I
on
certainly
your,
do. But
plus the hobo beard. You're on your way to hobo.
I am. Well, let's backtrack a little bit here. Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. Welcome to Podcast at Ground Zero, episode number 24.
That's
Gimme Shelter. 24.
That's right. In fact, that would be the opposite of being a hobo, because we're going to talk about where you're gonna squat at night, and clearly they don't have any of that in hoboing.
They do not. So we got me, the Apocalypse Nerd, and Adam Bomb Glancy, and William T. Thrasher is joining us this week to talk about. Hello, Will. Talk about homesteading in the apocalypse. So. And now, speaking of a hobo knife, Scott did mention it here. I do have my K-Bar hobo knife. It comes apart like that, and each section, knife, fork, spoon, does come out to make an individual utensil. And the reason I went with K-Bar is because they had the balls to still call it a hobo knife on the packaging. Unlike every other company that goes, oh, it's a camping knife. No, it's a damn hobo knife. So
it is a transient utensil.
Yeah.
It is.
A multi-function transient utensil.
So we're going to talk about shelter. We're going to talk about, keep it dry, keeping safe, things like that. Of course, as usual, talk about, any favorites that we have in books, TVs, movies, television shows, plus, again, what may really be practical. So before we start, a couple of in the news things. I did see, I've been trying to find the link, but I can't frickin' find it. They recently had a new trailer for the Mad Max video game that's coming out next year.
Yes,
on the reboot.
I did see that.
Also, there is a show on, and I wouldn't know this because I don't watch ESPN, but apparently on ESPN2, there's a show for West Coast Customs, and they were actually, they did it yesterday, built, apparently it's part 1 or 2 of the episodes to build the Mad Max car from the video games.
All right.
As opposed to the traditional one, so they're custom
building.
Yeah,
because it's not even close to the it's not close to the Viet Interceptor.
No, it's nothing like that. It's
way over the top.
Yeah, but I figured worth. I'll try to track a link down to it somewhere. I don't know if it's on the. I couldn't find it on ESPN2 or on the West Coast Customs webpage. I'll find it somewhere. I'm sure somebody will have it on YouTube in no time. So we'll get I'll get that posted because I'm curious. I'm curious to see it myself because like I said, for some reason I've been watching a lot of car building shows lately. Like all these ones where they're like building custom cars and finding old cars and rebuilding them. Because again, I'm a little bit of a gearhead, so I'm like, oh, I'm in car mode lately. So I've been want to find that. So when I find that, about 2.5 weeks, we got a monster apocalypse movie coming out. We'll see how much of an apocalypse it is.
Would that be the Godzilla film? Or,
that would be the yet another new Godzilla film. But
I gotta admit, I liked so far the trailer is certainly, I don't know, I liked the kind of absolute abject terror that Walter White is selling during his during the trailer. You know what I mean? Like that it's actually sort of like sanity blasting that this thing just shows up and steps on our shit. You know what I mean?
What I love about the trailer more than anything is that it looks like a Godzilla movie made by people who actually like Godzilla movies.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fair assessment. That's a
So
fair assessment.
it looks hopeful, but we'll have to wait and see what happens once it actually
Oh yeah.
gets out there. But because it was funny because we saw the commercial for it the other day, and we were just watching some TV. You know, Corda had a little smile on my face, and she's like, "No, that looks dumb." And then she saw me, she's like, "So you want to go see it?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to go see a Godzilla movie." I want to see everybody's favorite kaiju. Hell yeah! But so that's coming out, to like May 16th. So I'm gonna have to wait until the end of the month to see it because I and you are gonna be busy as well, Mr. Glancy, on May 16th.
See, I will have something to do.
So,
Is there an open bar? Because there should be an open bar.
we'll talk about the logistics of that afterwards. The show.
You bring the flask with you, every place becomes an open bar.
All right.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Flasky really is the only one who truly understands me.
Yes. Well, no, it's we'll talk like there's a lot of economics involved in this, Scott. So we'll talk about it later. And so anyway, moving on from my wedding, they don't need to know about that.
Sadly, it is not Mad Max themed.
It is no.
Because that would have been the shit, sir.
Oh, well, I did sneak a tiny bit of gaming into there, so I got at least a little part of me in there. So.
All right. Does in the vows or like in the ceremony? Does somebody have to roll to hit armor class 0 or something?
That's a good idea though. Well,
all right, moving on.
We're
talking about Apocalypse Cribs, right? This is
So Godzilla, and I came across this the other day, on the internet, and I picked it up because it was relatively cheap. There's this game called The Quiet Year. I randomly ran across it on eBay. It is basically comes with a deck of cards and a little rule book. And that's just the basis of it. It's a map game about community and struggle. It's about making a map in a post-apocalyptic setting. If I could read to you from...
Give us a reading, sir.
Read to you from the... I posted a link to it on the blog, so everybody should have got it. The Quiet Year is a map game. You define the struggles of a post-apocalyptic community and attempt to build something good within their quiet year. Every decision and every action is set against the backdrop of dwindling time and rising concern. It's kind of like a map building, storytelling kind of. I don't really know that much about it. Reviews seem to be okay with it, and I figured, for less than $20, small independent publisher, let me pick it up and let me read it and see what it's all about. Because like each of the deck of cards correlates to each week of the year. And each on the back of each card, there's like, let me pull it out here. There's like different different events and things that happen each season, each week. So, and there's supposed to be use some dice, and you build a map. I don't know much about it, but you know what? It had a post-apocalyptic theme. It was under $20. It looked interesting. I figured I'd check it out, and then once I check it out, I'll give a little feedback on that.
Cool beans.
Yeah, I figured it was a nice little find, and like I mentioned to you last week, I don't remember if I mentioned on the show, but I mentioned a few shows ago about the Metamorphosis Alpha Kickstarter about doing the hardcover deluxe edition. I said it was kind of dubious on the $80 price tag that it had, but they more than made up for that. They put a slew of stretch goals out there of stuff that came with the hardcover. Like, I'm getting like an additional 10, 12 things, which made it worth the price. And they hit every stretch goal. They clocked in at $83,000. So they even had a stretch goal be a slipcase to hold all the extra content. So it's got it's got 3 modules that are being written to come along with it, a mutation manual, a written armory guide, there's a whole bunch of stuff, some dice, a lapel pin, a metal bracelet that's supposed to be like an identity bracelet from the ship, PDF copy of it. They came out with
Oh yeah, I remember the identity bracelets. I remember that being like a thing, like keys for getting into places.
Yeah, like ID cards, like stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that they had in Gamma World. Same principle. So yeah, they came out with a boatload of stuff. And it's like, yeah, you know what? My $80 was definitely well worth it. There's a 24 by 36 poster map of the ship, of the decks and stuff.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
Repeat that number again so people understand how freaking huge this is.
24 by 36 inch map, poster map. That has like the deck plans, so so you can see like the deck plans. Again, free one came with the hardcover. It's closed now, but they really Goodman Games really stepped up their games and did that. So they're going to continue to put out modules for it, because the renaissance of the old school gaming. So a lot of people were like, oh, they should do something for Gamma World, but it's like, that's not going to happen because
TSR in charge of the license.
WotC still owns it, and WotC.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I keep forgetting that TSR is a dodo.
Well, James Ward was able to do that because the rights reverted back to him, so he's able to license do whatever he wants with it. But Gamma World is a different thing because, as you know, they made a pile of shit for the last edition. And that's for the guy who says he's going to have all his friends buy just to teach me a lesson.
Yeah, I'm sure it worked.
It did. I feel so bad about myself.
I imagine you feel quite chastised by the whole experience.
Well, remember though that Gamma World is like video game consoles. There's a new one every 7 years.
Exactly.
We're just a handful of years away from the next version of Gamma World, and that one could be one of those ones that really sticks with people.
Exactly. And the reason what they came out with that edition is because they actually, because White Wolf had done the 6th edition, which was a D20 edition. They took a different angle to it. They tried to be more hard science, but they wound up pulling their license because actually, from people we knew in the industry, somebody had said that WotC across the board pulled licenses. Like, Gamma World, nope, they pulled everything and brought it back in house. And then a few years later, they came out with that because for some reason, I guess maybe because of Hasbro, they're like, no, so we don't want these licenses out there. We want to be making the products. And then, that's what happened. So I don't know. So they really need to license things out. Again, let other people who actually care about it make shit. So anyway, that was the only thing I had there. A couple game things, the car thing, Godzilla coming out.
I got nothing except... I had sort of said that I had gotten a copy of.
Oh yes.
Picked up a copy of this film, How I Live Now, and sadly I did not see it.
Okay.
I blew it. The deal is that I've just been really sick since I got back from the HBO Film Festival, and unfortunately I just got sick during the very short rental period, only 2 days for new rentals. That I had it, so I sent it back to the Scarecrow. The other thing I failed at was getting a look at Dead Shadows, which is sort of a monster apocalypse, maybe even a Lovecraftian apocalypse. I got a copy of a screener to borrow to take a look at, and apparently because it was sort of a handmade Blu-ray, it utterly failed to play in a Blu-ray player.
Oh, nuts.
It just started. It just got slower. It had compression files that were messing it up. So it utterly and completely failed. So the two films I had to possibly report on, I got nothing. That's the end of my report.
Okay, no problem. Because I didn't watch anything either. I wound up over the weekend. I wound up binge watching Spaced again, which I haven't. So that's That's a worthy endeavor, though. I don't think there's anything. That's wrong with that. I think that's it's the right thing to do. Well, I sat down at breakfast on Saturday morning, like about 8:30, and just started watching, and I got through 11 episodes before I turned it off. And then actually that night, late at night, like in the middle of the night, I watched the other 3 episodes, so I got it all done in like 24 hours. Because they're only 25-minute episodes, so I was able to get it all in.
Plenty of time to eat, go to the bathroom, perform other bodily functions. Yes.
Exactly. So, And
Yeah, it's the
again,
one that it's the one they don't have on Spaces. They don't have anything. The one genre I don't remember them picking up is post-apocalyptic.
yeah, they don't really. I mean, they talk about zombies a bit, but they don't George Romero. But that's about it. They don't really hit on that too much. But again, it's one of those shows which I said in the past is, to me, that's more the geek sitcom that should be, not this minstrel show that is
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. You know, because I saw one of our friends recently, Derek Conch,
Yeah, Derek Koch.
had posted something about this article about this guy was totally ripping into whole or he was talking about something else, like some kind of Marvel Shield show, and he started getting the whole the geek culture thing and this and that.
Oh yeah, Agents of Shield. Okay.
Yeah, and I agreed with what was said in there, and of course a bunch of people, and they were like, "Oh, I love that show. It's so great. We got to get over ourselves. If you can't laugh at yourself, it's like I laugh at myself all the time, asshole." But the thing is, they're laughing at you because here's the analogy. Let me just get this out, and then we'll start. here's the analogy I have about, because I read this article and I can't find it. It was about this woman who was a cosplay person. Did a lot of cosplay. Been doing it for years. She was talking about how cosplay was always, it's been around. It wasn't that popular, but people did it. But then all of a sudden, when the whole geek thing boomed and also the cosplay thing boomed, everybody started doing it. Everybody's dressed in costumes. And the thing is, how she felt was, like back in high school, she was marginalized. She wasn't cool. She wasn't popular. She was off to the sides because she was a weirdo. Now with the whole cosplay thing becoming popular, and people think, oh yeah, I'm a geek, I'm this, I'm that, all the cool people, all the pretty people are dressing in costumes. Whether they are into it or not, because we can't get to the argument of like what's a real geek girl, what's not, who's really into it, who's not. I'm sure a lot of these people aren't into it in depth as the people who are been doing it for decades, but all the pretty people started doing it, and then all the regular people, or the maybe not so pretty people, are all being marginalized again. She felt like she's being marginalized. Like, I've been pushed out. I was in the center stage because it was my thing to do. Now that all the gorgeous people are doing it, they take pictures of them, they pay attention to them. I'm nothing now.
Well, there's certainly now a cast of professional
Exactly.
cosplayers, if you want to call them that, where they have a professional model who wears an outfit that was professionally created. I will say nothing bad against anybody who went out and either constructed their own costume or assembled their own costume. Those guys will always have my love.
Oh yeah, it's not my thing, but you know what?
Because they went out and did it. They went out and built it, or they spent the money or the time or the skill and built a costume and put it on. That's great. But there's definitely this weird thing where I keep seeing people handing out business cards here at Emerald City Comic Con or whatever, as if I don't know how they intend to monetize it. Maybe I'm just not up on the whole thing, but it strikes me as what was our hobby, has been invaded by professionals who are attempting to monetize.
Exactly. And that was a point the guy in the article made about how they're trying to monetize it. It's like they're trying to make money off of that, like anything else. And again, we're being marginalized. Even though it's our thing, we're being pushed to the sides because, well, we're not good enough for it anymore. It's like, well, yeah,
we're adding a new section to the show. It's called Geek Gripe.
Yeah.
we just talk about the shit that chaps our geeky asses.
Let me tell you what grinds my gears.
Yeah. Otherwise known as Monday for Jared.
Monday. Yeah.
It's a day of the week. It's just a day of the week.
So anyway, my point was about the thing is like she made a good point about being marginalized, and that's how I think everything's becoming with the show. And I think that Space really represents people into those kind of offbeat things better than a modern day sitcom, which is just trying to bank on trying to sell you T-shirts.
Yeah. The part when they do a joke on Space, one of my favorites being when the guy has to leave the comic book store he works in, and he has to leave without notice. He's like, oh, I could come back and work with you, but I have to give 2 weeks notice. He's like, wait, I have an idea. And he just tells the owner,
Babylon 5's a big pile of shit.
He's like, you get out, you a heretic, and just throws him out immediately. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that to me is geeks laughing at geeks, not because that's, oh my God, do we do that shit?
Exactly.
You know, but then you go around to then you get around the Big Bang Theory, and what do we get over and over again? Girls are girls are
Bazang!
no girls are scary.
Well, they are,
And
but
we
that's
get
besides
this.
the point.
You're marrying one. You know what the hell?
Well, they're
Now,
still scary.
that one is.
Yeah.
She could punch your heart out like Bruce Lee. So fucking keep on the straight and narrow. She will just boom, just pull it out and hold it up for you. Anyways, but yeah, I just don't. Anyway, moving along from Geek Grant.
Moving along. All right, that was this week's episode of grinds my gears, and next week we'll talk about. All right, so give me shelter.
These kids today, don't stay off my lawn.
Shake! I'm shaking my fist at the universe. Shake it harder, boy. But shelter. What are we gonna do for shelter? Okay, I think. All right, here we go. I'm just going to get a poncho because you know what? I could wear it in my house with me. I could take it anywhere. I can make shelter anywhere. Done. Show's over. See you later, guys.
Well, I'm just going to say that let's just get this out of the way. If you're a nomadic tribe of survivors or scavengers or raiders, your shelter for the night is whatever shelter you seize before moving on.
Exactly.
But I'm assuming we're talking about something a little bit more long term.
No. We could talk about. I said we'll talk about all. Long-term, short-term, nomadic. If you're nomadic, if you're stable, are you gonna get a castle? I mean, no, anything for shelter. I was kind of half kidding with the poncho thing. It's like if you're on the move, a poncho. Well, look at the army. The guys in the army, they have their ponchos. That's their shelter. That's their warmth. That keeps the rain off them. If you're running around on your own, like the postman, you need to be able to. Carry one on your back, and you can't carry a house on your back, maybe a portable tent. It could be complicated to build, Well,
I gotta tell you, some of these tents today, some of these, micro lightweight fiber, tents, are actually pretty shocking. How easy they are to put together and how much they are to carry. But yes, you're right. There's nothing simpler than a pole, stuck in the ground supporting your poncho to keep the rain off. That is the simplest.
That could be the ultimate.
Well, it's going to be fine, except I'm not sure what it's going to do for fallout.
It also depends. Is the rain you're going to be sheltering yourself from in any way acidic? Are you going to need to find a material or a coating for an existing material that's not going to be eaten away by the rain, which has a ridiculous pH imbalance?
Yeah. Yes, that was certainly my first concern when I arrived in Zion Valley in Fallout New Vegas. Suddenly it rains for the first time in 4 Fallout games. Suddenly it's raining for the first time, and I'm like, oh, of course, it's going to be acid rain. I'm going to start taking damage. And then it didn't hurt. And I was like, wasn't quite sure I understood what to do. I was like, what? The Fallout universe is not trying to hurt me? Oh, it's lovely, lovely rain? Okay, fine. It's not even radioactive? But anyways, the classic. I mean, I think of classic shelters. I think of like that one they found in the road, or they find that shelter where everybody has been wiped out and it's full of those treasures from the old world, like cans of beans and whatnot, and filtered water, and that sort of shelter. There's all those classic shelters that are just
these little metal tubes that got buried under the ground, climb down, and
it's not meant to be those places are never meant to be your prime base. They're meant to be where you stay until the fallout level, until the radiation levels go back down to the point where you can go back in your house, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're never meant to be permanent inhabited structures. But then there's places like that place in Vegas we showed.
Oh,
the giant bunker that looks like a house underground with a sky painted on the ceiling and murals on the walls like it's the great outdoors and fake trees and fake grass.
Who built that?
I found it online. It's somewhere in Las Vegas city limits, and it is like something out of a boy and his dog. It is absolutely in-fucking-sane. It was so huge. I want to say that wasn't there like a waterfall and a grotto built into it?
Yeah, and there's like this big fake rock that lets it up to be a barbecue, and
Yeah, yeah, it was completely insane as far as waiting out the apocalypse. It had gone from practical life saving to basically sort of opulent excess. You know what I mean?
oh yeah,
Like now they're just showing off.
well, there's this company. I'd have to go on YouTube to find it because I favorited their infomercials on the YouTube channel. There's this company building like these large underground like community shelters that are like huge with like, well, here's the rooms and here's a teaching room and here's this room and like these big giant complexes.
Are they made out of buried train cars or buried? Because that's always a classic. Even the creepy Branch Davidians. What they do? They buried a bus or something.
Well, there was that like Millennium Shelter where he had like buried like 12 interconnected school buses and made this like underground fortification.
Yes, that was going to collapse under the weight because the school buses weren't designed.
Yeah, the school buses are not load-bearing structures.
Yeah, idiot. And but there's a big thing about him getting it shut, being, the government shutting me down because it's going to collapse on you and kill you, and we don't want to have to pay to dig you out later. We're saving tax dollars. But
okay, it's the company is called VIOS, VIOS, the VIOS Underground Shelter Network. I just digged it up. I'll post it on the event page. They have like all these infomercials about their structures. Oh, it's some nice looking stuff, but it's really expensive.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, there's a number of sites that I've seen where people are advertising services to convert the old Titan silos. That is the ones that are the single missile in a silo, the single control system. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Not like the one we visited, Jared, but the one that's just like there's like a 3-story control area, and then they're going to convert that into a living space, and then convert the silo into storage.
Oh, I think that's like the old Atlas ones up in the Northeast.
You're right.
Up in the New York area.
You're right. It is not Atlas. Sorry, it's not Titan. It's Atlas. You're right.
Yeah, because they were a single missile.
Yeah, and those almost seem like they're less about fallout shelter as they are being about personal redoubt.
Oh
you
yeah.
know what I mean?
Little bolt hole.
It's your bolt hole when them darn Obamas and the FEMA and the UN destroy America, you're going to have to find some place to hide from the rampaging mobs of urban youths who are not in any way a racist thing. They're economics, where they get into that horse shit. Because let me tell you, you start wandering around bunkers and survival stuff, and you always run into these guys who are convinced that the folks are going to come and take their shit away are the folks they didn't like in the first place, right? Like the apocalypse will just make all of the things that they don't like be confirmed. It'll be I always presume I always liked that turn that Bryn did in The Postman, where the guys who come to take your stuff are the other survivalists. Because they've certainly stocked in the weapons, they've certainly stocked in the firepower, and the rhetoric. So, yeah, you probably didn't deserve all those cans you stockpiled. So, yeah, the Nevada one's pretty hysterical. There's one up in I want to say Linwood or Everett that is literally it's under a suburban house that's you can find.
There's a lot of those little individual ones of people building up. But you get your the shelter business is booming again. People are building shelters because of the era of paranoia. But then again, those kind of shelters are designed for the long term. It's like, what are you going to do for the long term? It's like, are you going to live in your house I think a lot of where you're going to survive after the apocalypse is, well, what kind of apocalypse are we looking at here?
Yes, clearly. Yeah, you don't get to if you're having a nuclear war, you don't get to hang out in your brownstone like Chuck Heston in the Omega Man, right?
Yeah, if it's viral, is it a zombie apocalypse, a monster apocalypse? Because then you need to be somewhere fortified. It's all going to depend on your situation, But I think even in all of them, of course, the most fortified locations, are probably the better, to go with, like, your prisons and things that are, Fort Knox, places like that.
Military bases are not terrible, and so are places that were designed to keep people in. Also, pretty good at keeping people out, and we do have a ton of prisons in this country.
Yes. Of course, the issue is though, getting to one that's not already occupied by people who want to keep you out.
Oh, because guess what? They have a built-in population already. Yay! Prison guards and prisoners. So
presuming one set hasn't eaten the other, neither one are going to be particularly pleased to see you turn up.
They might be.
What was the line from the Dawn of the Dead remake? This is our place. Go find your own. Something like that. Just like,
go somewhere else.
Yeah.
What do you call him? Shaq. Going. It's like you can just take your ass down to the Holiday Inn down the street, or whatever,
Yeah. So certainly the classic, I gotta admit that the classic shopping mall is bullshit. That thing that we got with Dawn of the Dead, it was a parody of consumerism, but that is not a place I would like to secure. There's so many entrances. There's so many exits.
Big open spaces which are effectively killing floors, which is good if you've tricked people into coming in. You're intending to ambush, but not good for anything else.
Yeah, not the most defensible position I've ever seen.
And I figured out another flaw with using a shopping mall. Most shopping malls that have been built like in the past 20, in a lot of cases 30 years, all have fountains somewhere because there's always that whole wishing well thing.
Yeah.
Well, once civilization collapses, that's stagnant water. And don't drink it all, and I'm sure it's not safe to drink. Yeah. You're going to have a breeding ground for mosquitoes and any number of
that's
other
hilarious.
nasties.
I'm sorry, Bill, but that's fucking hilarious that you've got, unless you clean it out, unless you drain it.
You got to drink it real quick,
or boiled it or thrown it over the side or something, because, that's sucky. Yeah, well, that's the thing, that's not good at all. Because, again, we're going to be few and far between our malaria shots, I'm afraid.
Yeah, because are you gonna live in urban housing? Are you gonna live in, because it really depends. Like high rises, things like that. Because I was thinking about that. It's like people are like, high rises are a good idea because, like, there's only a couple ways in. You can defend it a little bit easier. But the problem with that is long term. Because, well, number one, somebody could light your fucking ass on fire. Like, you know what?
You're impregnable until they light the first floor on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like any house, they could light a fire. It's like, we're just going to light some fires, and then just burn you out of it. It's
well, that doesn't get the stuff. Honestly, that does not get the stuff.
Well, they could smoke. They could smoke you out. They could make some heavy smoke fires on the bottom to come up and make you think the place is burned down, have you go out, kill your ass on the way out, then go take your shit.
Well, and then
just wait you out. It's not like you'll have infinite food in there.
Well, they want your food.
Yeah, but it's a siege. Like any siege, the trick is to run the guys out of food. In a siege, it's okay because it's a military objective, right? The objective is take the castle. If you're Saladin or Richard the Lionheart or whatever in the Holy Land, you want the castle. You'll restock it later. But if it's this survival situation where we need their stuff because if we don't get their stuff, we're going to starve out here. They have to storm you. They can't wait for you to run out of stuff because then what do they get to do? Rape your emaciated bodies because, you ran out of food? Well, I realize that's okay for, some of Lord Humongous's, maybe the gay boy berserkers or the smegma crazies may be okay with that plan. But the whole point is to get your stuff. So burning it out waiting you out.
Depends how much of a crazy fuck there. They might not give a shit.
Yes, the zombie problem, they don't care. They'll wait you out.
Yeah. But also I think the long-term problem with like buildings like that is, like we talked about in previous episodes, Life Without People, when you take out the human equation of maintenance, things start to break apart and start
Yes.
failing. So like a high-rise, bridges, things like that. If you don't got the infrastructure to keep that shit maintained and going, it's going to eventually fall apart on you. And you don't want to be like 20 floors up and the building is coming apart because there's water leaks at the base and you lose foundation, things like that. So it's where do you go? But then also, I guess the question is, do you settle or do you roam, like William was saying in the beginning, or are you just roaming around, living in coaches, or cars or whatever it is, being mobile, or are you going to settle in somewhere? And where?
It depends on what your survival plan is. If you're planning on farming and animal husbandry and going back to the land, you're going to have to settle. But you can still settle temporarily when scavenging. If you move into a town, start picking it clean, of that kind of that's scavenging, yes. But it's at the same time, it's you're going to be there until the supplies run out. Then you'll maybe move on to the next one. So it's semi-nomadic, But if you're not going to be farming, I guess you keep moving. Because if you settle in one area and you don't have a way to replenish your food supply, you're going to starve. You're going to pick the area clean.
Exactly. And then that also goes back to the problem we were talking about the other show, was transportation. And your vehicle's breaking down and fuel getting old, or trying to find fuel, so you have another problem on top of that besides just, it's like, great, we have Warwag 1, we got this giant bus, we're sleeping in it, we're protecting ourselves, that's our shelter, but you also got to maintain it and get fuel, so you're constantly scavenging, and it's a perpetual cycle.
Well, see, that's what you do, is that the people with the vehicles need to make that are moving around need to make some alliances with the people who have settled. So the people in the vehicles, they can go around, they can do their scavenging, and every couple of months they stop in a settled area, sell scrap metal, sell tools, sell things they found. In exchange, they get to stock up on some extra rations, and they also get to stock up on processed animal fat from the people who are doing animal husbandry. They can convert into biodiesel for their vehicle, and then they just move on.
William, you've just created commerce.
You've just reinvented civilization. Congratulations, sir.
Well, William is a visionary. That's all I gotta say. He's thinking. He's already thinking way past. We're just like, well, where are you gonna hole up? He's like, well, let's just get things going again.
My question is in fiction, do we have any examples of redoubts or homesteads that particularly jump out from the fiction that we've seen over the years?
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, because we were talking about at the beginning, and it's something that I was going to bring up as well, is Luke Reinhardt, The Long Voyage Back. Which was a post-apocalyptic novel, came out like early 80s, started off in D.C., nuclear warfare, but these people have this long cruise ship. Not a cruise ship, but they have like a sailboat. And they get out of Chesapeake Bay on a sailboat, and the whole story is them going down the coast and sailing and going to docks, stopping in, trading, running into other boats, and they eventually go around the Horn, but surviving on the water, especially if you're in a coastal area, surviving on water, boats, sailboats is a thing because they're not running on fuel.
It's also not permanent, because it is the other thing. Just as you said before, you better have a plan on where you're going with this thing, because even though it may be sail powered, it's going to be devoured by the salt water.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah. So you better have an idea where you're going with this rather useful resource. It's I guess I have a hard time thinking of that as a home as much as I do thinking of that as a conveyance.
Well, it's kind of both in that situation.
Yeah,
well, what about cruise ships? Because I came across this old article I found. Best places in the world to write out the zombie apocalypse. Some of it's kind of stupid, like Antarctica. But they talk about South Florida as number 5 and the condos, but they also talk about cruise ships.
Well, that's
really condos.
Well, the cruise.
Go ahead.
I was saying the cruise ship is great, assuming no one infected is already on board. You never know if there's a carrier. How many times a year now do we see, like, there's a news article about a cruise where, for no apparently obvious reason, everyone on the ship gets diarrhea or dysentery or who knows what?
Yeah. Now imagine they can't actually go to a port.
Yeah. Well, they're giant floating cities, you know. Well, I'm not saying, you know, pack everybody on there. It's like they're there for the pillaging, but basically it's a floating city. You know, they got all the infrastructure. They have med bays. They have food storage. You know, but then again, the problem is
It's a closed system, and you can spread a disease in there pretty fast.
that as well. But you gotta be careful. But it's also, again, fuel is a problem. You know, unless you're of course on a modern Navy nuclear submarine or battleship, which has an endless supply of energy. You know, well at least in our lifetime, endless.
I don't even know if it's that. My understanding is that the fuel on board, the fuel load on a vessel like a Los Angeles class boat, is only like they can run that thing
Like 7 years or something.
Yeah, it was a number of years. It was a single digit number of years, but it's going to end. That joyride will end. I suppose, you know, when you're talking years, that's practically endless. But
then that's kind of like on the last ship. You know, they're trying to find a place to, like, okay, we know our shit's going to run out soon. We got to find somewhere to dock and stay.
Yeah, someplace to settle, and use the energy from the reactor to, you know, make some changes to the environment to build.
Well, look in the Ravagers, not the book, but the TV, the movie with, you know, Ernest Borgnine and I can't remember
Richard Harris.
Richard Harris. Then what's his name?
Woody Strode.
No, the old guy. The actor. What's his name?
Richard Harris.
Was it Richard Harris?
It was
Richard Harris. Yeah, I just found it.
Richard Harris. It was Woody Strode, who was one of the guys in the boat too.
They had like a
Art Carney too.
Art Carney. That's who I was thinking of. Thank you.
Okay.
Art Carney was in it. Basically, their survival area was like they just had this big cruise, not a cruise ship, it was like a cargo ship, and it was docked against the water, and that's where they lived. That was their home. You know.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on where you're at. Rivers, boats.
They turned it more into a fort redoubt than they did into a, you know what I mean. It was more of a fort redoubt than a conveyance. But it certainly, it had some advantages.
Well, when they run out of when the big boat runs out of fuel, you just run it ashore, and what are you going to fucking do with it? You know.
Yeah.
You know, I've just suddenly been thinking, I love Tank Girl, both the comic and the movie. Get yourself a tank, remove something that's non-essential, put a bed there. Now you have a vehicle and a shelter, and if it breaks down, you've got a fort.
It's a multitasker.
Yep.
Just like Elton Brown's always talking about. He loves multitaskers.
Well, as far as, sort of other, there are a lot of fictional post-apocalyptic homes that have been vehicles. The Landmaster, Ark II, the boat from the Long Voyage Back.
Warwag 1, Warwag 1, Warwag 2 in the Deathland series.
Yeah. But I was going to also point out that that one of the things that I've always enjoyed is sort of I've always enjoyed the fictional bunker, and then there's the semi-fictional bunker. Because how many times has Crystal Palace, right, been fictionalized? We're in NORAD's base outside of Colorado Springs. How many times has that been fictionalized into a final redoubt where people are going to survive? I mean,
a lot.
A lot. I mean, they did it in Jeremiah. They did it in the Survivalist book series. It's come up a few. Hell, they did it in Twilight 2000, I guess. But that's one we always hear about because maybe it's the most. Maybe.
Well, no.
Maybe it's. It might be up until recently. It was more famous than Mount Weather or Raven Rock, which are the two big command and control bunkers for the U.S. executive branch that are still out there. Do you guys know about Let me see if I can look this up. I believe it's called Yaman.
Sunset.
I can't remember.
Pardon me.
Sunset.
Yes. But it's the Soviet version of this.
I've heard of it, never seen anything about it.
It's something like Yamanato Mountain. It's spelled T-A-U at the end. Yamanato Mountain. It's out in the Urals near the city of Chevelinsk. And there's no one's ever gotten a look inside it. There are no tours. There's no Discovery Channel, specials on the place. But the story is that not only did they build it and start building it in the 60s and 70s, but they just kept building it, and that allegedly it's connected by a rail line from Moscow. During the Cold War, it was a rail line that was kept open.
Oh yeah. That I kind of remember a little bit about that.
Yeah. And it even said things like, "Oh, it's an underground rail line." I don't know about that. I'm thinking, however many. That's a lot of 1,000 miles of tunnel. You know what I mean? I get that there was an underground rail line under Moscow, so that from those bunkers, those command and control bunkers, the command and control could move around in these special rail lines that the public never got to use. Speaking of which, hooray for Metro.
Yep.
Another great bunkery environment, but
it's a huge bunker environment because it's the whole system. It's not just one section. That's become their environment. So it's not. It was a shelter to protect against the fallout, but it wound up becoming home. Yeah, that's where they live. So
I was going to say that. Let's see here. I'm going to try and find the link that I have. But here we go. Underground facilities, Cheyenne Mountain. Okay, it's Yamantau Mountain, and there is a Wikipedia article on it. It's very thin, but supposedly the Russians have used it for everything from hiding missiles they didn't want to dismantle under the various arms limitation treaties, which implies that it's got a lot of space, to perhaps having built weapons facilities in it for purifying weapons-grade plutonium, so it was stuff they could keep out of the eyes of satellites and keep it in this giant underground facility. So it's a charmingly scary place. I mean, it's every Cold War nightmare rolled into one.
But it's not accessible to us. So it's cool, but it's like it's never gonna do us any good, unfortunately. So, Scott froze up. Scott,
he will return to us one day.
He will. He said he was gonna freeze up. So, and he has a beautiful look on his face where he froze up. So, I didn't get to that. You froze up, you froze up. You were like this, Scott. You're like, it was
Thank you. That is the face you make when you find out that the commies have a giant underground base under the Urals. It's the size of a city. Yeah.
So, we talked. I mean, we've just been just a general discussion on different. Okay, so Will, I mean, in any movies or fictions, do you have a favorite go-to place to hole up, or do you have something in real life if it was to go down, where you would go?
Well, actually, I wanted to bring up. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a movie from 1982. This really brilliant, over-the-top post-apocalyptic movie called She. Have you ever seen this?
What's it called?
No.
She, S-H-E.
No, I've never heard of this.
It's a very kind of self-aware post-apocalyptic movie. It's got a lot of it plays around with every post-apocalyptic trope all at once. But one of the things that happens about 2/3 of the way through, and I've always liked this as a post-apocalyptic shelter. There's this mad scientist type who has this shelter, but his shelter is in the middle of nowhere because he doesn't want to be bothered. It's in the middle of this inhospitable, barely passable piece of swampland that takes care of so many of his problems because so few people want to bother trekking through that expansive wilderness to begin with. But the other thing I like about his shelter is that his whole shelter is made out of plastic sheeting to keep the moisture out, but to still let in light and heat. It's like this environmentally, very cheaply environmentally controlled greenhouse inside. And of course, it's a sterile, and because it's all plastic sheeting, he's able to keep it a mostly sterile environment for his experiments and his surgeries. All of the surgeries being unnecessary, I should add.
Yeah, I was about to say that if you're a mad scientist, by definition, you are not doing necessary surgeries. Let me ask you a question. Is this somehow connected to the H. Rider Haggard she?
No, not at all.
All right, just wondering if they're like riffing on that somehow. But all right, whatever.
No, the only thing that really kind of like unites it is there's this one woman called She, but that's it. There's no other parallels or overlaps.
All right.
Well, and then of course one of my favorites is the legendary Prime Base in the Morrow Project role playing game. The ultimate base that all the teams are looking for. That's always kind of I tend to name things Prime Base.
Is Prime Base in Morrow Project, is it destroyed or lost?
It is lost because I remember from the history was the war happened. They were there. They were delving out food. They were helping people out. It was under construction. It was not under construction, but it was going on. But there were some radical anti-Morrow Project people there that like infiltrated and like blew up a section or let some kind of disease in to where they had to shut the facility down. People got put into hibernation because it got like totally diseased. They had like a bio hazard in there, so it got shut down, and it got didn't release a signal for 200 years. So nobody's in the place. Anybody who's there is in some kind of cryogenic sleep. So the teams don't know where it is because like it's not sending signal anymore. It just sends out signals to wake people up. So because there's a whole module just on Prime Base, on the facility.
Okay. All right. So there is okay. All right. So you're intended to find it. It's not like it got cratered.
No. It's there.
Okay.
But one of the books that I like is a book by Andrea Nort. Now it's not Daybreak 2025. It's another one. Andrea Norton wrote was No Night Without Stars. It's very Gamma World. Okay, it is about this primitive tribe who. These primitive tribes are nomads, and these guys go exploring, looking for just around. And they come across they come across a cybernetic installation. So it's very Gamma World. So they find this cybernetic installation that's frickin' gone bookshit fucking crazy,
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to kill them, and it's interesting. But it's a shelter, it's a place,
But it's also a character. I mean,
it's a character in the book, but it's so Gamma World because of that. I always that's one I've read in the last couple of years. It was published originally like in in the 1960s or something like that. But it's a big shelter, it's a big bunker, it's this whole installation that they come across. So it's very Gamma World, that book. I don't know. It's always a hard decision. I'm always of the one for shelter is. I've always thought, you got to keep mobile. Again, just depending on the situation, but you gotta find something fortified. Whether it's a prison, an old castle.
Well, we're fucked on castles on this side of the pond.
Yeah, exactly.
Our European brothers and sisters will certainly be able to work something out in that department.
All right, I live in Frankfort, Kentucky. Halfway between Frankfort and Lexington, there is a castle.
Oh yeah, you got it's like an old Spanish fort or something, right? Or French.
Well, it's a resort. It's like a hotel resort that it looks just like a castle. So because it's a resort, there's lots of entrances and exits. It would be very difficult to actually fortify it without spending a lot of time just blocking off ways in and out. But beyond that, it's in the middle of a field. There's a rise, so if anyone was coming for you, you would certainly see it, and they'd have to go uphill a little bit to get to you. So at least you'd have that.
How's it for water? And that's another thing. How's it for a water source? When I think of where am I going to drop my anchor for a while, the first thing I'm thinking is, how close am I to water?
Yeah.
Potable water.
That's the tricky part, is keeping it potable. I know there is a pool there, but again, that brings up the same problems as the fountain in the shopping mall.
Hmm.
There is the Kentucky River, which I guess if you had a way to treat the water, would probably be fine.
Well, how much? Well, it depends on how much true. Weren't they drinking out of the L.A. River on the Colony? And I gotta tell you, I don't care
Oh
how
yeah.
much I don't care how much
No, no,
charcoal
no, no,
they
no.
dunk.
Which one? The second one
The
or the
first
first?
one. The first one. Weren't they drinking
Oh
out of
yeah,
the L.A.
yeah,
River?
no, yeah. They were boiling that water. They built their own filtration systems because it was like the whole.
But it's still the L.A. River. I mean, it's like, can you filter out I don't know, the corpses and the
How
dead
much?
rats?
How much poop can you filter out? You know.
Yeah, the heavy metals and arsenic and whatever else is floating out of into the L.A. basin,
Well,
or I don't even want to call it a river. It's like the
Well,
L.A. trickle. It's
well, that's why you want to get out your army survival guide, and get a big plastic bucket, get a big plastic tarp, and build yourself something to collect rainwater.
yeah, that's right off the bat.
yeah, you got to get water, water, water. Because as we know, the human body can survive 3 days without water. But you could go longer without food. I think you could go up to 3 weeks before the body starts to shut itself down. But water is essential. So you're right. You got to be near a water source.
So whatever place we're getting, I mean, there's all this idea of like, well, I want to go out someplace in the desert where no one will bother me. Okay, congratulations, no one will bother you.
Not even you, because you won't be there very long.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you gonna like? Make a lot of drink a lot of cactus juice?
Well, I was about to say, yeah. Well, on the plus side, maybe if you can drill down and hit an aquifer, that's great. But my understanding is that stuff can, in fact, come and go. You can drain out aquifers completely, and heaven forbid you drain down an aquifer underneath your super cool underground survival bunker, so it can all fall into a frickin' sinkhole. That'd be great.
Or just go up north, build yourself a place up north where they have glaciers all year round, so you know you're going to get water off of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing about the Pacific Northwest is we're not going to be shy on water. Our rainfall is, I mean, we're rainforest, rainfall levels. So we're good for that. You down in Florida, rain is not going to be your problem. You just need to have something to collect it in, and you're good to go.
Well, it can be a problem. There goes a lot. Trust me, there goes very huge stretches of time where ain't no fucking rain down here, dude.
And you've got, and Florida has lakes and ponds, but there's like what, the Swanee River, and that's it. I mean, Florida does not have a lot of big water. It has no waterways bisecting it.
Swamp. Got a lot of swamp.
A lot of swamp. Yeah, I'm sure you can drink out of that. It'll be fine.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
no problem.
Jared,
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned like drinking from a glacier. Have you ever seen the movie Solar Baby?
I think
Yes.
I think I might have. I think I probably have seen that, but I think I probably blocked most of it out, so I can't really recall most of it. So.
Where there's that one survivalist tribe that lives in a cave network by a glacier, and that's what they do. They've rigged up a little thing that channels the water melting off the glacier, and boom, they have more water than just about anybody else in that movie.
That's the one where they're all on fucking roller skates, right?
Yes.
Yeah, rollerblades.
It's the rollerblade. It's the rollerblade apocalypse, or at least dystopia. I guess it's an apocalypse.
Well, they implied that there was a cataclysm, and that's why the world is screwed up, and why all the water is behind that giant dam.
And why they have roller skates.
Yeah, why they roller? Of course. Well, when did Solar Babies come out? That was like what, like 85 or 6 or something like that.
Isn't Jamie Gertz in that? And
oh, maybe.
in fact, there's
1986.
Ooh, I was close. Yeah. Because
Oh,
that's right. That's right about when rollerblades would have started to get popular and come out.
There was Richard Jordan, Jamie Gertz, Jason Patrick.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Aren't Gertz and Patrick also in Lost Boys?
Might be.
Yeah, okay. Oh, they're alum. But anyways, the point is that I'm geeking out on movies when I'm supposed to be talking about Shelter.
Well, but again, I think ultimately you got to be. You're right. I think the ultimate decision for no matter wherever you build your fortress, you need to be by a water supply. You need to be able to get water. You
cannot just have it all tanked in and say that's the end of it. I I have a tank of water, because no matter how big it is, you could lose it. It could spring a leak. It could become compromised.
Something could die in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 50,000 gallon tanks down there. Well, it's gonna run out sometime, dude. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind about, especially if you're settled down and not being a nomad, where are you going to defecate?
In the water supply.
Clearly, I would hope it would be downstream from where I'm picking the water out of the river.
You would hope, but you'd have to get back in the Middle Ages practice of digging a privy every season.
Yeah, no, you're right. You would literally have that outhouse you drag around to drag over the new hole, park it, and then pull it away and fill in that hole, and yeah, exactly.
When we talk about things like this, I really start to think of, why do I want the apocalypse? Because life's gonna suck.
It was so much more cooler when we were 18 years old, and now we're gonna have to shit in a hole in the ground.
Fuck that! I want my porcelain turlet.
Well, try this on for size, ladies and gentlemen. I'm playing the game. What's it called? State of Decay. And at one point, you pick up some guys, who are survivors, and you take them back to your camp. Sometimes you'll get these little audio stories where they'll start telling, they'll start rambling on to provide local color. And one of them starts talking about how, man, did you notice how all the toilet paper disappeared when the apocalypse started? I mean, I understand it runs on food and ammo, but some forward-thinking fellow realized, the end of the world's coming. I'm gonna want some Charmin, and yes, we are not gonna be back to wiping our bums in the Roman fashion on vinegar-soaked pieces of paper, because we're not gonna have any paper
or vinegar.
Yeah, the vinegar, we're getting a better chance of getting the vinegar because it's just distilled wine. I mean, it's grapes. If we can make grapes, if we use any we might be able to make a vinegar out of a distilled.
So we're gonna need water to make farmland to grow grapes, so we can make vinegar, so we can wipe our ass.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
Okay, I'm just checking to make sure I had this chain totally down pat.
Did Survivors teach you nothing?
It didn't.
Yeah, clearly it didn't.
You were gonna say something before, William? I saw it on your face.
Oh no, just wondering. And I think I've brought up this show before, but you all remember the Australian young adult soap opera, The Tribe?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Because it's something that had just occurred to me, because a good chunk of the show, takes place in a city that's kind of been reclaimed by the survivors, but in the first 2 or 3 seasons, all that city does is keep the rain off their heads. Yeah. And one of the big things that changes, and I think season 3 or season 4, is this new faction shows up of these smart kids who can get a generator working, and just the promise of electricity completely changes the established power dynamic on that show.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to consider, with your shelter. If you're really clever with your improvised shelter, or you're using a pre-apocalypse building, how far are you going to be willing to go to bring any of the old luxuries back into your home? If a person can come in and say, I can get a generator running and you guys can have light and heat and air conditioning, at least for a certain number of hours out of the day, what are you going to be willing to trade to get that?
I'm going to trade Scott.
Great. Again?
But no, it's just like on the Colony. Of course you're gonna have a random group of strangers who actually have engineering and mechanical skill sets, who are gonna make windmills on the roof and get power, and are gonna rip up solar panels from old houses and get electricity going, because the average Joe's gonna totally know how to do all that.
Yeah. And I would point out that certainly. Well, those guys are going to be made out of gold, obviously. And the question is whether or not they get a say in what goes on because they have a skill, or if, Throg just comes along and breaks their ankles so they can't run away.
Oh
and keeps
no!
it, you know, and keeps them
We're
around.
just gonna keep them chained up and walk them around where they need to go. They ain't going anywhere.
Yeah. Fortunately, I have no skill, so no one will be breaking my ankles.
Well, you do have skills. They'll use you to break other people's ankles.
Oh, okay, I see. Great, I got that job.
You're the man.
Nobody wants to see Scott showing up. Hi, I brought a sledgehammer.
So,
We'll make it quick, I promise.
so just start to kind of wrap things up here. I
want to make a couple other points about, we talk about the first thing you're going to do is utilize shelter that already exists, right?
Yes.
I mean, the chance that you've either built your shelter, or you're inheriting somebody's shelter, or you're inheriting a structure that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously you want to be near water. You kind of want to be out of the city, only because, let's say, there are no raiders. There are no, but you're going to have rats eating through the food supplies and other buildings and breeding, and there'll be more rats, and they'll be coming through your food. Yeah.
Random fires.
But that's the big one. You just said the F word. Fire.
Fire.
Yeah, the idea of just fires cooking off and nobody attending to them and them just burning as they see fit through a city, that's some scary shit. You might have your Chuck Heston barbed wire encrusted brownstone that you're living in. And
well,
I want to know,
just a random lightning storm could ignite something and it could burn out of control and that whole city could be gone in a matter of no time.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about fires down the block working their way towards you. Fire's big. You kind of want a place that's isolated. You want a place that's close to water. You want a place that's, and again,
defendable.
If you can manage it, the thing to remember is, okay, Florida is fucking hot, all right?
Yes.
But the hot will, generally speaking, not kill you. The cold will kill you. You're going to die in Minnesota without shelter. You're much better off in the south, out of the north, not having to burn fuel to keep warm, only having to burn fuel to cook, and
just die of heat exhaustion because you can't cool off.
Well, that is a possible. Well, what happens is you turn into a Latin American peasant. You don't do shit during the day. You do all your work at night. You have that. They have that siesta not because they're lazy. They have that siesta because they have a brain in their heads.
That is actually one of the things. That's one of the perks of the post-apocalyptic environment. The siesta is going to come back in a major way.
Now,
that is going to be a major improvement to our quality of life.
Yeah, I could not agree more because
I love the idea of siestas. I've been trying to, for the last 11 years where I work, I've been spearheading this campaign to bring in. It's not called a siesta. I call it corporate nap time. So that so that after lunch, you get about 2 hour period.
Is that like when the CEO gets a little cranky? They have a little nap time to chill.
Corporate nap time. Everybody needs it because it's after lunch. Everybody's a little slow. You get a little hour or two nap, and everybody's refreshed, and everybody's like steamrolling through the end of the day and getting shit done. Corporate nap time. I'm totally behind it.
Well, no, if you want to get them to sell off on it or to sign off on it, just call it a synergistic human resource realignment.
Oh, God damn it, William.
The renewal. Synergistic human resource renewal. And then they will sign off on it.
Trademark that immediately.
It totally invigorates our paradigm.
Oh, fuck you. Jesus. Oh,
God damn it. Will speaks corp speak better than I do, and I work in a corporate environment.
Look at him. He's a dirty hippie with his long hair and his...
I like to know my enemies.
Oh, Jesus.
That's where this comes from.
Wow, yeah, clearly. Damn. Just so long as you never use the word online as a verb.
We got a fucking Mr. Johnson here, man. It's like he's gonna freaking hire us to do some wet work,
Hey, Chummer.
Okay, Chummer, let's slot and run.
Let's slot and run, but
yeah, the thing is that at some point in the whole shelter idea, you got to move beyond using the stuff that was left behind
and creating your own new stuff.
Yeah. And that may be that may be mud huts and hide tents, or it might be, if we're really lucky, it might be log cabins. You know, I think it's going to be a while before we're able to, mill the wood sufficiently so that we're having, the wood houses that we have today. But a log cabin is not a bad start.
It's funny you mentioned log cabin because this was something that occurred to me on the run up to the show. I've got there's this hardware store down the street from where we live that sells these freaking huge PVC pipes, which I guess are for irrigation or something. But they're so big, like they're watertight, but they're huge. They're like
oh yeah,
this big around. You take those, cut the ends just right, they become Lincoln logs. You could make a log cabin out of these prefabricated PVC pipes.
And you can insulate them more, like fill them with like sand and grass, just so there's something in there to like give it a little bit of insulation and solidness to it. Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd work. That's something that would work. I mean, anything's better than building a sod house. Yeah. You can possibly avoid that.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of shanty towns, that's for sure.
Well, that's the thing I always find amusing about every time you come across a town or something, or in the Fallout games, is that no one just built a cabin. There's no log cabins or anything. There's no milled wood. It's always just a whole bunch of pre-war crap that's been piled up into shapes and sort of stapled together.
Or built off the side of a car or something.
Yeah. But that way it has post-apocalyptic street cred. Because it's obviously made from pre-war junk or the airplanes that Megaton was made out of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's always that way. It's got real credibility, post-apocalyptic credibility. Otherwise, it's just cabins. Wood cabins. What are we in the Wild West? This is the post-apocalypse.
Or like you said, adobe huts. Like back like the Wild West, like the Mexico in the Southwest, and like the 1800s.
Adobe, They'll be bringing back the adobe, that's for sure. And I'm not talking about the software company. No, it's going to be mud bricks and the whole 9 yards.
And again, it's kind of like remember how we were talking about when we were talking about food in the apocalypse. We talked about how food's going to become regional again because of the environments that they have. Building's probably going to become regional too. What do you have? In the Southwest, you got mud in it. You can make adobe houses. Where there's woods in the Northwest.
Nobody's going to be importing Italian marble for a while.
Well, unless you're a really powerful overlord, then
yes,
otherwise.
Well, you never know though. You could be scavenging in an old suburb. You might find a countertop that was renovated seconds before the apocalypse happened.
You've got a very good point, William. Because if it's my understanding that a lot of the mosques in Cairo were built using was it the granite facing they pulled off the pyramids? The pyramids is it limestone with granite? I think it's limestone with granite.
I don't think it was granite. I actually think that was an Egyptian marble, which was incredibly rare because you don't find Egyptian marble nowadays.
Yeah, but I want to say
history class.
They stripped that off, and certainly there were some Roman buildings that were cannibalized partially during the Middle Ages.
Dude, South Florida, there are so many frickin' tile and marbles, frickin' stores down here. You can find plenty of marble and tile. down in Florida, so.
And certainly, without the advent of all the technological conveniences that we expect from modern life, when you say about regional, well, I guess the South is going to have a rebirth of porch culture.
Yep.
There's that whole thing where if you could possibly manage it, you weren't in your house.
Everybody just gathered out front. Hot today. Yep. Hot yesterday.
Hot again tomorrow.
I reckon it'd be hot tomorrow.
Well, I do declare, Mr. Glancy, you're giving me the vapors.
Oh my God.
Your brother Jessup, he's a barn burner. And then it turns into a Tennessee Williams play.
Oh, good. Good. It turns into a Tennessee Williams play where it becomes the most misogynistic homosexual. Oh my God.
That's what we need. The Tennessee Williams cat on an irradiated lead roof.
Oh my God, I hate that bastard.
Uh,
I hate Tennessee Williams. Don't even get me started.
well, it's going to be kind of like your house, Scott, because
What?
in the summer, your house is hot as fuck in the summertime, dude.
Yes, there's no air conditioning up here there's no air conditioning in houses built in the Northwest
Exactly.
because for 360 days out of the year we don't need it. And yeah, there's a couple of weeks in the summer where you really wish. Yeah, it's time. I've had friends go rent hotel rooms rather than put up with the heat, particularly when they had like young kids, infants, and stuff.
I'm thinking of somebody with the initials of JT.
Yeah, he's like, nope, not gonna have the first child melt. So we're going elsewhere. But part of that post-apocalyptic shelter is going to be post-apocalyptic architecture. There's going to be a complete change of the materials used. It's all going to be regional. The techniques are going to be regional. Houses are not going to be built as zero lot garage mahals. Right.
That's Florida.
Yeah, you're gonna have stuff where people are going to be building sort of sprawling ranch houses because why build up? It'll be more of a sprawling ranch house. Why build extra stories? It'll be lots of open porch in the South. I'm imagining huge porches and verandas because again, your kitchen will probably be outside because to protect you from burning the house down because of a kitchen fire
And the heat.
and the heat generated by the kitchen, you'll probably go back to having because. And that's the thing I remember seeing in adobe houses in the Southwest is you'd see these, there's the house or whatever, and then outside is this sort of pit area with an adobe built brick oven area for actually preparing the food. That's going to be the apocalypse.
Or what about old Roman style houses with the open porches in the center? It's like
Yeah, an atrium. Yeah.
because it's just like a thin. Like the rooms, but then the center is where it's open and you get air and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, and a lot of that's going to be because there's going to be fewer corridors. I mean, it's literally going to be houses that are going to be room, and that's what a Roman house is. That center atrium is a place you cross to get to the areas of the house, rather than have to go through because they're shy on corridors and big on rooms. I mean,
or a lot of shotgun shacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly right.
You may find yourself. Sorry, but
thank you.
So anyway, there's again. I think let's end it on that because we're even though we started late, we're getting a bit late.
Yeah.
That yes, the long term, it's there's going to be a lot of regional things to building, just like we talked about food. So. Anyway,
this is the part where I become, this is the part where the one thing I miss about, old into like the 19th century or the before World War II, again a period I never experienced, or in this fantasy apocalypse we're talking about, is regionalism. I kind of miss the idea that each area had a very specific character until consumerism and the ability to transport anything anywhere cheaply suddenly creates this environment where you can have a Tuscan villa in Arkansas.
But the problem is, once you do that, in the apocalypse, I have to worry about Tuscan raiders coming out of that villa.
Will. That hurt. That really.
Ow.
It was called for, but it still hurt.
No. It was not. No.
If you shake your hands in the air and do the crate dragon, maybe you'll scare me away.
Yes, you just wave the floppy arms of your robe around, and that just makes the average Tuscan shit his pants. Jesus.
It does. So anyway, on that note, so yes, that was
time to go.
Time to go. That was a very disjointed discussion on shelters in the apocalypse. I think we did actually get some concepts and ideas out there, but
one maybe two.
But hey, you know what? We again, like I always say, we're not professionals.
We are, especially this time.
But that's well, again, it's a discussion. It's a open discussion about the topic. So we didn't have a specific like, okay, we're going to talk about this movie. So it's fine. So any final thoughts, Scott?
Not really. I mean, the big thing, I guess, we've hit the big things. And as far as shelters go, I did want to throw out, again, my favorite thing about shelter is that, in communities, or, shelters, groups of shelter leads to community, and that's always the sort of marvelous place in post-apocalyptic stories where you find the dystopia, You find the place that keeps the rain off your head, and it turns out to be a trap. Turns out to be
Sean Connery in a wedding dress.
Yeah, that. I was going to go with Jason Robards wearing clown makeup in Boy and His Dog in that fucking, what was it, the Republic of Topeka, or whatever they called themselves?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, or that, or, yes, Sean Connery in a wedding dress. Jesus, that's not good. But yeah, those, or The City. Or Alpha, what was it called?
Alpha Complex.
Alpha Complex. It's always someplace like that. You're like, oh, look, they keep the rain off, 3 hots in a cot, and whoops. Yeah.
Comes with a price.
Yeah.
So, William, any final thoughts?
I guess my final thoughts as far as shelter after the apocalypse is don't. If you're going to be picky, be prepared to make a lot of modifications to your shelter yourself.
Yeah.
And those army survival guides are indispensable. Actually, the best. Here's what you want to do: the apocalypse happens, and you don't have time to teach yourself how to survive in the wasteland. Find a Legion hall. Find some like not secure military building. Go inside and just pick up those little comics that Joe Kubert did that are all nothing but like comics of survival strategies, and they're brilliant. They'll tell you how to build a shelter, how to make a latrine, how to make a water catcher, how to make a water filter, how to repair a vehicle without tools, and it's all tested survival techniques straight out of a war zone.
Mm.
Yes, very, very good.
I like the use of the comic in that because, man, keep it simple, stupid. That's got to be your watchword when trying to train people up. You got to be prepared.
Heck, if you
got to be prepared
them,
I was going to say, you got to be prepared to train the village idiot.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's after a generation or two, there's no guarantee that the people are going to be literate, so the illustrations can still help get the message across.
Again, he's always thinking of the future.
Always the future.
The future, this kid. He's always thinking of the future.
My thing is, I'm just going to go back to what I said at the beginning, is just get yourself a nice, sturdy poncho, because that's going to be your shelter,
That may be it, yes.
That may be it. Also, you know what I think I'm also going to invest in now is I'm going to start stocking up on tarps. Lots of tarps, because those are going to be, I think that's going to be my trade good, which is going to get me my food and ammo, because you know what? You can do a lot with a tarp.
You can cover a hole in the roof in your shelter.
The tarp smith is coming.
The tarp smith.
The tarp smith is coming. You could use it to gather water. You could use it to, you could do a lot with tarps. So I think that actually that's a reference to something somewhere. I don't remember where it was. We were talking about tarps are like the way to go in the apocalypse. It was some book or movie, and I cannot remember where it's from. But tarps. I'm saying that's my final word on shelter in the apocalypse. Get lots of tarps.
You'll be a post-apocalyptic Sisto.
That's right. So. All right, so folks, that's been episode 24 of Podcast at Ground Zero. We did 2 weeks. We did 2 in a row because we had had to adjust the schedule a little bit, but we're going to do normal 2 weeks from now, and then that'll be the same week. They have a lot of other shit going on, but we're still going to get it done.
Make that happen.
What are we going to talk about? You know what? I haven't thought that. I actually was forward thinking this time and had 2 planned out. I don't know what the fuck we're doing next time. We'll think about it. We'll talk about it, and I'll let you guys know when we know. So for William T. Thrasher, for Jared W. Wallace, Apocalypse Nerd, and for Adam Bomb Glancy, this has been Podcast at Ground Zero. Thank you and good night.